3,000 varieties. That's how many types of potatoes the Inca grew in the mountains of Peru. Today, walk into any supermarket in America and you'll find maybe 10. But this isn't just about potatoes. This is about 8 crops that fed every civilization in human history. Through wars, through famines, through ice ages. They didn't disappear by accident. They were replaced. And the people who replaced them didn't want you to remember. The crops that saved civilizations weren't forgotten. They were erased. And science now proves our ancestors knew exactly what they were doing. The archive opens 10,000 years ago, in the highlands of Peru, where clouds touched terraced farms carved into mountainsides. In the river valleys of Mesopotamia, where the first cities rose on the backs of humble seeds. In the forests of eastern North America, where 3 plants learned to grow together as sisters. This is where the garden began. Not one garden, but 1,000. Each perfected by a different people. Each containing the same wisdom. These 8 plants can feed a family forever. High in the Andes, the Inca didn't just grow potatoes, they perfected them. 3,000 varieties, each adapted to a different altitude, a different soil, a different purpose. And they invented something the world wouldn't see again for millennia. Chuño, freeze-dried potatoes, the world's first processed food, stored for years, carried across empires, fed armies. The potato didn't just feed the Inca, it built them. But the Inca weren't alone in their genius. In the forests of eastern North America, the Haudenosaunee discovered something remarkable. 3 plants that refuse to grow apart. Corn rises tall, providing a trellis. Beans climb the corn, fixing nitrogen into the soil. Squash spreads below, its broad leaves shading the ground, holding moisture for its sisters. They called them Dio-Hako, the sustainers of life. Together, they provide complete nutrition. Apart, they struggle. The 3 sisters weren't just crops. They were a lesson. Nature already solved the problems we're still trying to figure out. In the Mediterranean, peas were the first green thing to emerge after winter. Ancient Greeks believed they were a gift from Demeter herself, a promise that spring would return. In Mesoamerica, the Aztec cultivated the tomato, what we now call the tomato. And on the plains of North America, tribes grew sunflowers as a direct connection to the sun. Eating the seeds, they said, meant eating sunlight. For 10,000 years, these crops didn't just feed people, they built empires. They defined cultures. They were sacred. And then, the ships came. The First Erasure wasn't about seeds. It was about power. Colonial powers didn't just take land. They replaced what grew on it. Indigenous farming systems, perfected over millennia, dismissed as primitive. Cash crops replaced survival crops. And the wisdom that fed nations began to fade. In 1845, Ireland learned what happens when diversity dies. The potato blight didn't kill potatoes. It killed one variety of potato, the one everyone planted. 1 million dead, 1 million fled. Because when you bet everything on one variety, you bet everything. The Inca had 3,000 varieties for a reason. Ireland had one, and one wasn't enough. But the biggest erasure was still coming. By 1900, seed catalogs listed thousands of varieties. By 1970, seed companies began to consolidate. By 1990, 4 companies controlled 60% of the world's seeds, and they didn't want diversity, they wanted uniformity. Because diversity doesn't sell, uniformity does. 3,000 potato varieties to 10, 40,000 bean varieties to 4,000. 75% of all crop diversity gone. This wasn't neglect. This was replacement. But here's what they didn't erase. The potato, still the world's 4th largest crop, carries a secret the Inca always knew. It's a complete protein, every essential amino acid in one tuber. Scientists only confirmed this in the last decade. The Inca knew 8,000 years ago. And if you want to grow them in a small space, build a tower, 4 feet of chicken wire, 3 feet wide, layer soil and straw as the plant grows. One tower, 80 to 150 potatoes. The Inca fed empires. You can feed a family. Beans don't just feed you. They feed the soil. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria live in their roots. Every bean plant you grow reduces your need for fertilizer by 30 to 50%. The three sisters knew this. Modern agriculture forgot. And there's more. Climbing beans produce 10 times more food than bush beans in the same space. A 6-foot trellis, 2 square feet of ground, 20 pounds of beans. Dry them, and they last for years. Combine them with grains, rice, corn, bread, and you have complete protein. The Iroquois didn't have nutrition science. They had observation and 7,000 years of practice. Squash is the oldest domesticated crop in the Americas. Seeds have been found in caves dating back 10,000 years. And here's why it survived. Winter squash stores for 6 to 8 months at room temperature. No refrigeration, no processing, just a cool, dark corner. And heritage varieties, up to 4 times more beta-carotene than what you find in supermarkets. Every part is edible. Flesh, seeds, flowers, leaves. The Haudenosaunee called squash one of the first foods, gifted by the Creator. It fed them for 10,000 years. It can feed you for a winter. Here's a question most preppers miss. Where do you get fat? Protein, beans, potatoes, carbs, easy. But fat? The sunflower is the answer. Native Americans grew sunflowers 5,000 years ago. Then Spanish explorers took them to Europe. Russians made them famous because the Orthodox Church allowed sunflower oil during Lent. Russia became the world's largest producer, and Americans forgot about their own crop until we rediscovered it from Russia a century later. The seeds store for years. Vitamin E rivals supplements. You can press them for oil, roast them for protein. The stalks make trellises. The heads feed birds, or you. The sunflower is the only fat crop you can reliably grow in a home garden. And it started here, before we sent it around the world and forgot. For 200 years, Europeans were terrified of the tomato. They called it pomodoro, the golden apple. Some thought it was the forbidden fruit from Eden. Others thought it was poison, and they had evidence. Rich people who ate tomatoes got sick. Some died. But it wasn't the tomato, it was the plates. Wealthy Europeans ate from pewter, which contains lead. The acid in tomatoes leached the lead into the food. Poor people, eating from wooden plates, were fine. The tomato was innocent. For 200 years, no one believed it. In 1820, Colonel Robert Johnson stood on the courthouse steps in Salem, New Jersey, and publicly ate a tomato. The crowd expected him to die. He didn't. Today, science tells us tomatoes are one of the most powerful foods on Earth. Lycopene, the compound that makes them red, is absorbed 2.5 times better when cooked. The Aztec cooked their tomatoes. Europeans feared them raw. The ancestors knew. In the starving months of late winter, when stored food runs low and nothing grows, peas are the first thing to emerge. Frost tolerant, fast growing, a promise that spring will return. Ancient Greeks believed peas were a gift from Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Medieval Europeans survived on peas porridge. the meal that fed the poor through famine. And in 1856, Gregor Mendel used peas to discover the laws of genetics, the birth of modern biology. From a garden vegetable. Like beans, peas fix nitrogen. They improve the soil for whatever comes next. Plant them first. Harvest early, then plant something else in their place. The first food of spring, the foundation for summer. The zucchini has a strange story. It started in the Americas as wild squash. Spanish explorers took it to Europe. Italian gardeners transformed it into the green summer squash we know today. Then Italian immigrants brought it back to America in the 1920s. Born here, transformed there, returned as a stranger. The zucchini is a story of homecoming, and it's absurdly productive. One plant, 30 to 50 pounds of food per season. Let it grow large, and it stores for months. The seeds stay viable for 6 years. Americans joke about zucchini season, too much to eat, but too much food is a problem our ancestors would have envied. Native Americans had a name for winter squash. They called it the keeper. It was the last gift of the harvest, holding the memory of summer through the coldest months. Planted in spring, harvested in fall, eat it in February. When you bite into it in the dead of winter, you taste August. Butternut, acorn, Hubbard, delicata, each stores for 3 to 6 months at room temperature. High calories, vitamin A, fiber. The seeds can be dried and replanted for generations. Winter squash isn't just food, it's a bridge between the harvest that was and the garden that will be. For a century, we were told to forget the old ways. Industrial farming was the future. Monoculture was efficient. Diversity was unnecessary. And for a century, science has been slowly proving. The ancestors were right. 3 sisters planting yields 20 to 30% more than monoculture. Heritage tomatoes contain up to 95% more lycopene. Nitrogen-fixing crops reduce fertilizer need by 30 to 50%. Genetic diversity reduces crop failure by orders of magnitude. Every study, every experiment, every breakthrough. They keep confirming what grandmothers already knew. The science isn't new. We're just finally listening. But here's what they didn't tell you. These crops didn't die. They waited. In seed banks in Peru, where 4,000 potato varieties are still preserved. In grandmother's gardens in Appalachia, where heirloom tomatoes never stopped growing. In terraces that haven't been touched in 400 years, where the soil still remembers. The seeds are still there, and they remember. They remember the hands that planted them, the civilizations that depended on them, the wisdom that created them. They forgot. But the seeds didn't forget. You don't need 3,000 varieties. You need 8. These 8. The ones that saved empires. The ones that survived everything history could throw at them. The ones that have been waiting for someone to remember. 10,000 years of wisdom didn't disappear. It's waiting in seed banks, in heirloom catalogs, in the terraces of Peru. And now, it's waiting for you. You are the remembering. If knowledge like this shouldn't be lost again, you know what to do.